Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS special series 59 Days of Healing, where we explore one maxim from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind, each day to integrate the practice into our lives. Today is day 25, and we're working with point 6, Healing Promises. Maxim 25 says, say nothing of others' failings. If maxim 11, when troubles abound, turn adversity into your path to waking up, is the poster child for all 59 maxims, then the maxims in point 6 are like the lifeblood of this practice. These are particular areas where it's valuable to make promises to ourselves because human tendency is kind of counter to our aspirations at times. Not always, but most of us know that going on about others' failings is not helping anybody. So this maxim is a very good example of how the healing promises work. A lot of them are pointing out areas of conduct that we've known for a lot of our lives don't necessarily serve us and often harm others, but we may still engage in that very conduct. Most folks listening to this podcast are not going to be on trial for murder or for armed robbery or any of the other major non-virtues. When the Buddha explains things that are not virtuous, which simply means in the Buddhist system, not in line with the nature of things, not in line with our true nature, he describes them as things that are unwholesome that we do with our body or with our speech or with our mind. Most of us fall in the category of not being as conscious of how we use our speech for harm or good. So what this maxim is doing is saying it doesn't really help to spotlight people's failings. It's not in line with our true nature. Even though sometimes we can get a buzz out of knocking somebody, it doesn't actually align with our heart, nor would we want to be on the receiving end of somebody else talking about our failings. Moreover, we have a tendency to believe our words are describing reality. So when we say, oh, that person's stupid, for example, we've now branded that person. There's a lot more to that person than whatever it is that has prompted you to call them stupid. Labels like this minimize an entire experience of an individual. They put blinders on our openness to understanding what is happening for that person that leads to the behavior we're so casually describing as stupid. It's not just about putting some duct tape over your mouth to prevent yourself from speaking about others' failings. The more we do this practice, the more it comes up as our daily maxim, and we start looking at our speech, the more we catch ourselves, either right after we said something, right before we say something, and eventually before that, when the impulse to say something nasty about somebody starts to arise. This is a really powerful moment of practice when we start seeing the impact on our mind of the mere impulse towards something that is counter to our true nature. We start to feel in our bodies, viscerally, the disturbance that behavior counter to our true nature actually works on our mind. Then no matter what the impetus, no matter what the reward may be, nothing will make us behave in a way that is against our true heart. This is the deep, deep meaning of this and several other maxims in this point.
This one I find to be challenging sometimes in the context, not just of my own internal impulses, but some of the things that we do socially to connect with other people. I know that when I started working with ethical conduct, and this is in there as well, and I started noticing more and trying to keep myself from saying negative things about people. And I would notice that there would be some interpersonal arenas where that was kind of part of the culture or part of the way somebody would want to connect with me would be about that. I don't know if you have any strategies that you think are helpful when there's an external pull to engage in this.
This certainly adds an extra layer to our understanding. And early on, especially if we already have a habit of speaking about others' failings, it's hard to even recognize that. And it's extremely hard not to respond when someone is encouraging you. As a matter of fact, one of the ways that's very helpful to work with this and other similar maxims is to watch on the day, like today, when this is your maxim. Is it happening that people are encouraging you to speak against others? Look to your mind into that impulse. It's actually a little easier to feel the impulse to speak this way when you're responding to somebody as opposed to this happening from within. You have a little bit more of a gap where you can pause and feel that. In my personal experience, I find that changing the subject saying something pleasant about the person, there's always something pleasant, or deflecting the conversation, saying something like, well, you never know what's going on for folks, do you? Or the like. Allowing the person to know that you're hearing them, but choosing not to respond in the same vein. You'll be surprised how people tap in on that. And it may not be comfortable. People may continue to pursue you. Compare what it feels like when you respond that way and when you don't. Allow your body, your embodiment, to tell you what feels right and what doesn't. And I think that will make a big difference. None of these things are meant to be something that changes overnight. If it changed overnight, you wouldn't have to make a promise to heal by using these maxims. You would just do it. Another thing to think about is most of us know somebody who's very good at this. My best friend since high school, I have to scour my memory to think of a time when she speaks about somebody's failings in this way. It's a delight to be with her. It's so pleasant. I don't dread what she's saying. I don't dread what I might fall into. And I have a mirror that she holds up to me where I can say, there's a little bit of egg on my face. And I'd like to be more like her. These are all different ways that we can work with it. Honestly, anything that comes up with respect to this maxim will help you. Even when you catch yourself responding to the person in the social event who's encouraging you to speak about others' failings, you will learn this maxim so much better out of the experience of what it's like to have responded to that prompting than you ever will reading every single book about this practice on the planet. Our experience is our best teacher. I'm not going to give you advice of how to avoid the experience of falling on the other side of your aspirations. It's often your best teacher.
I love these suggestions to change the subject, say something pleasant, just, be silent. I'm wondering, I am a big promoter of active listening. Is it also helpful sometimes to, just as an alternative, to be able to reflect to somebody, wow, it sounds like you're really struggling with this person, or, oh my gosh, I can hear how they push your buttons. How does that fit in?
I think there are definitely circumstances where that might be helpful. I don't think there's a rule that we can keep in our pocket. That's part of our being receptive to situations. I would suggest that responsive listening is very helpful. Look at their body language, look at their tone. Is this something where saying something like, wow, they really push your buttons is only going to start a stream of even more difficult statements? Then maybe a responsive approach to that would be to divert the attention. Many times it depends on us. Are we in a place where we won't fall prey to the stimulus to speak about this person's failings or to get activated by the other person's expressions? Nevertheless, This isn't a foolproof scientific experiment with full controls and everything in its place. It's okay if you try and turns out that you thought maybe they just needed a pause, but they start going off on this person, then you can do it the next time around. And it depends. If you're talking about a social situation like you were describing, I'm not so sure that encouraging more of that is going to be helpful. But you might have a way of responding to what they're saying that doesn't necessarily send the signal that you're receptive to more comments.
Really trying to find a way to shift the culture of that interaction or that conversation. Sounds like it's would be helpful, and that might take different skills or strategies in different circumstances.
That's exactly right. It's going to be very different in a casual social setting or in a work setting, or maybe you have a family member who has a tendency to do that. You might be a little more forceful, and you might have different relationships with people where you can say something like, I really don't like engaging in this kind of behavior or this kind of speech, and just say it outright. That doesn't make so much sense in a casual social encounter, but it make more sense with a friend or a family member or someone who you recognize is a potential for triggering that kind of behavior in you.
This has been Yeshe and Tanya on day 25 of PRAJNA SPARKS special series, 59 Days of Healing. Tune in daily for more maxims from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind. Check the episode notes for more resources and email us, sparks@prajnafire.com, with any questions. May all beings benefit.